Hello and welcome to another module of the web development course. This is your instructor Aditya Pandey. In this module and in the next few modules, we will be studying about something called CSS. So first, let's see what is CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet, and it is used to control the style of a web document in a simple and easy way. It can be used to create some stunning web pages which look far better than normal HTML. It is the second thing after HTML any aspiring web developer or designer should study. So let's talk about the applications of CSS first. CSS saves time. We can write CSS once and then reuse the same sheet in multiple HTML pages, thus saving a lot of time. The next advantage is pages load faster. If we are using CSS, we do not need to write the HTML tag attributes every time. Just write one CSS rule of a tag and apply it to all the occurrences of that tag. So less code means faster download times. The next application is easy maintenance. To make a global change, we simply change the style in the style sheet and all elements in all the web pages will be updated automatically. The next one is superior styles to HTML. CSS is a much wider array of attributes than HTML, so you can give a far better look to your HTML page in comparison to HTML attributes. The next one is multiple device compatibility. Style sheets allow content to be optimized for more than one type of device. By using the same HTML document, different versions of a website can be presented for handheld devices such as PDAs and cell phones or for printing. Global web standards is now HTML attributes are being deprecated and it is being recommended to use CSS. So it's a good idea to start using CSS in all the HTML pages to make them compatible to future browsers. Next we will see the basic structure for applying any style to a tag in an HTML document using CSS. So this is the basic structure or syntax you can see as on your display here. It's basically divided into two parts. This part which is called the selector part, and everything inside these braces is called the declaration. Okay, so selector is used to select an HTML element on which we want to apply CSS. So this part selects the HTML tag or HTML element on which we want to apply the style. Now the declaration, in the declaration we define the property and value for applying that style. Property is any attribute of the selected HTML tag that we want to change, and value can be any valid value for the corresponding attribute. We can define multiple property value pairs in a declaration. So we will look at an example for this syntax of for applying any style in an HTML document using CSS. So what we do, something written like this h1, it will select all the h1 tags in a web page, and then we will write color red. The color attribute changes, or the color property changes the font color or the text color inside that element, and red is the color. So this is the selector. This selects the h1 tags, all the h1 tags in the web page. This is the property that is color, which defines the font color for all the text inside that element, and this is the value, any valid value for that thing, like red is a valid color. Okay, so this is the basic structure for defining any rule or any style for an HTML element using CSS. Next thing we will look upon is how to include CSS in an HTML document. Basically there are three ways to implement CSS. The first one is inline CSS, second is internal CSS, and the third and the last is external CSS. Coming to all these one by one. Inline CSS, in this method we can include the CSS in the tag itself. The syntax for this will be something like this. We will include all the property value pairs that we want to change inside the style attribute in the opening tag of that element. Okay, so let's see an example for this. Okay, so close this document. We will make a new document, create a new HTML document. We'll create a h1 tag and we'll write something like hello world. Let's define the CSS inside this, like the inline CSS for this. We have to write the style attribute, double quotes. Inside this we will write color red and then a semicolon. This semicolon is very important. We can also write several other attribute properties and attributes, any number of properties and attributes inside this. Let's save this. We will give it a name, first css.html. Save, open the file, and you can see this heading is colored in red as we defined it in the style inline CSS over here. Okay, so this was how we apply inline CSS to our HTML tags. Now let's see at some of the disadvantages of inline CSS. So first one is that we cannot use quotations within inline CSS. If we use quotations, the browser will interpret this as an end of the end of the style value. So let's look at this disadvantage using an example. Open the same HTML document we created just now. Let's suppose that I have a div and I want an image in the background of this div. Okay, so let's write it inside the CSS style background dash image attribute actually applies. We will see these things later. Background dash image property applies an image in the background of the selected element. So we need to specify the path for that image. So we write it like URL, then the path, then close it. But what happens now? We need to include this path inside a quote. So when we enter the first quote, this one for the URL or the path of the background image, this HTML document, this considers that the value for the style attribute ends over here. That means only this much is the value for the style attribute, and this is something else. This is, but whatever it is, this is not for this style value. So this creates an error. What we can do for this, that we can use single quote instead of double quotes inside. This will solve our problem, but it is not considered to be a good practice, and we don't use the inline CSS thing. Instead we go for other methods of including CSS. These styles, the next disadvantage is that these styles cannot be reused anywhere else. So when we define the style for any HTML element within the style attribute, these styles are applied to these elements only, and we cannot apply this style to several elements by writing just one line of code. So that is also one of the disadvantages of inline CSS. And these are also tough to be edited because they are not stored at a single place. They are at very different. Suppose I have 100 elements, and if I define inline CSS for these 100 elements, when I need to change the style, I will have to edit all of them one by one, so that is not a good practice. And inline CSS also doesn't provide browser cache advantages like faster opening of web pages and all. This is not provided by inline CSS. Next we will look how to include the CSS using the internal CSS method. So what happens in this method, that we include the whole CSS into the style tag inside the head tag. So this is the basic syntax for this method. What happens in this is that we create a style tag inside the head tag, and what we do, whatever styles we want to apply, we write it all over here. We use the basic syntax like selector and declaration, and we write it all over here. Let's convert this inline CSS into internal CSS. So what we will have to do here, it's not a big task. Just create a style tag, write h1 select. We will select the h1 tag using this h1 selector, and we will just write color as blue. Save this, open the HTML document. So you can see the color has changed. This is how we apply internal CSS. There is one more method, that is external CSS. We will be looking at that one now. This one is the most used methods. Usually everyone ends up using this method only. In this method, what we do, that we save the CSS code in a different file with extension .css, and we link that file to our HTML document using the link tag, the syntax for which is like this, given over here. And we include this link tag inside the head tag in the HTML file. Okay, so let's look at an example for this and understand this thing better. Open the same HTML document, remove the style tag, and leave it like this only. Now open another window and write the code, CSS code, h1 color green. Now save this wherever you want to save, and give it any name you want to give. I will give it like first CSS dot CSS. Remember to give it an extension dot CSS. This is very important, otherwise it will not consider it as a CSS file. Save it. Now to include this style sheet in your HTML document, what you need to do, you just need to write the link tag, link rel style sheet, href Aditya, enter the path for the style sheet or .css file, and then the name with the extension. Okay, the rel attribute, this attribute over here, this actually defines the relationship between a linked resource and the current document, and the value style sheet tells the browser that any CSS file, whatever the file is defined here, this file is a CSS file, and that browser will use this CSS file to apply the styles to your HTML file. Just save it and open the. We have removed all the inline CSS and internal CSS. Only the external CSS is linked with this file, which is over here. We have applied color green. So as of now, just open the file. As of now, the color of the heading should change to green now. So you can see over here the color has changed. That means this is working fine, and this is how we apply external CSS in any HTML document. We can link several style sheets to one HTML document. That's all for this video. See you in the next video. Till then, stay home, stay safe.